All right. So once again, chapter 11 is called Payroll Process, which is going to take a look at how we process payroll, okay, pay our employees, pay our liabilities, and also file forms. Okay, so if you are following along with me, you guys should be having payroll processing 21 file open. Okay. So then here again, it should briefly tell you that this file is a sample file of using a small snippet of what it's like to have a payroll process service. Okay, sorry, payroll service. Now, in this case, right, what are the services? These things were taught in chapter 11, but you know what? I didn't get to show you what those services are. So let me go ahead and take a look. Let's take a look real quick so you guys can understand what these services are. Now, by clicking here, okay, there are a couple ways that you can take a look at the payroll services, right? You could either, when you're on this section right here, if you don't have manual payroll turned on, so if you remember last week, you go to edit preferences to payroll, and you could turn on a service, or you could process payroll manually. And today I'm going to actually show you both of them. But for now, because the book, I'm going to show you the book first. So here, usually you could just click on turn on payroll and you're going to get this window right here. Now, if you are using the trial version, unfortunately, you will not be able to see the screen. Okay, this screen right here will give you the options to pay for a subscription that Intuit offers. Now, of course, payroll is one of those big features that is very, very important, especially if the position that you are in and you don't have a clue of what you're doing. You're better off outsourcing to a third-party vendor to process the payroll for you. There are many options that you can do. And for small businesses, manual is usually preferable just because you have less employees, so less mistakes, like least likely to have mistakes. But if you're like a big business or a major corporation, you're either better off paying for a service because think about it. If for those who were in my accounting class, what was the process like to process one person's paycheck? It's a lot of work, especially when you have to deal with tax tables, you have to deal with their W-4 forms and what withholdings to withhold. Now that with the new W-4 form for 2020 and above, you have to introduce if they have a primary, secondary, or tertiary job. And you also have to consider if they have a spouse, you have to consider all extra income that is, that the person's W-4 form has. Because as a new W-4 form, you have to list out all of the earnings, including your spouse's earnings. And then you have to do all your deductions that you want to take, and then dependents, and et cetera, et cetera. So the W-4 form for 2020 and all the way and later is actually a lot more complicated than it is for the W-4 form for 2019 and earlier. Now, of course, for those who are currently with the 2020 and later, of course, those are going to be calculated completely separately. So think about it. You have your individuals with W-4 forms from 2019 and prior, and you have your employees with W-4 forms for 2020 and later. Now, of course, any person who's worked at the company prior to 2020, they can continue using the 2019 W-4 form or earlier because you basically only need to fill out a W-4 form if for any reason that there is any changes or if you want to state more claims, okay? But as by law, you are not required to update your W-4 form for any reason if it's unnecessary. So that means an employee could have submitted a W-4 form since 2015 or something. They don't need to change it unless they want to change and claim anything other. But again, let's say fast forward, it's 2021 and they decided to just update. They got married and they're going to file together as married instead of separately. Then yes, that's a huge changing factor to their to just their payment in general. And again, with that kind of factor, then yes, they have to fill out a new W-4 form for 2021 because they have to include their spouse's income if they're going to plan to file jointly. Okay? So there's a lot of key factors, and every individual that submits a W-4 form, they have different amount of withholdings. Some people are single, some people are married, some people are head of household. Some people have kids and some people don't want to claim their kids. Some people have homes that they want to claim and some people don't. So therefore, each individual case per case, you have to figure out manual payroll per per employee, per paycheck. And not only that, when we talk about manual payroll, which we will take a look at, not only do you need to calculate the employee's paycheck, you also need to calculate the employer's paycheck. That's why most companies, they rather outsource or have Intuit's payroll services available for them to make it that much easier to calculate payroll, because it's a long process, okay? And each individual person, it takes some time, okay? So here you go. I pulled up this thing. You do need to have a paid or a full version of a QuickBooks. So here I have QuickBooks Pro 2019. So I'm able to show you the availabilities of what payroll services that are available. Okay, so we have the basics, which is pretty straightforward, right? You get to pay your employees and you get to pay your liabilities. Straightforward, okay? And usually for the basics, it is for businesses that are less than 20 employees, okay? But as you move along and go up into each different category, right? So the next one is going to be enhanced. This is going to allow you to not only do pay for paying the employees, you can pay liabilities, and you can also file forms, and so on and so forth. And you can even you just file forms. Where assisted, right? It's for like large corporations who have hundreds, even thousands of employees, and not only can you process files, right, or submit files, right, you can even use Intuit to produce W-2 forms at the end of the year when individuals need to pay for their taxes. So as you progress in each package, now this is the huge difference here. It is a monthly subscription to have a payroll service, okay? Now, yes, of course, you can have an annual pass, which isn't that much of a difference or that much difference in pay, but this is a subscription that you have for Intuit. So maybe 1 year, or 1 year you're gonna use the payroll services. Maybe the next year you go outsource to another third party vendor to go ahead and enter these to go ahead and process the payroll for you. And of course, you're going to have a copy of all the information. So again, you can plug those numbers into QuickBooks manually, and then go ahead and be able to keep a good track record. All right. So again, you are not obligated to use the payroll services that Intuit offers. You're not obligated to do manual payroll either. You can go outsource to a third-party vendor. That's what most companies do because, again, Intuit can be kind of expensive, but it is convenient. But whichever one that you feel the best, make sure that you do know this because you could be asked what are the different types of payroll services that Intuit offers. Okay, it's going to be basic, assisted, and basic, enhanced, and assisted. All right. So once again, on your end, you will not be able to see it, especially because you guys have trial versions. So here you go. This is what the options look like, and you can do it through turning on payroll, or if you go up to the employees menu here, okay? If you go up to the employees menu, you can drop down this and you can see the payroll service options, okay? And that should be able to show you those three options, but that's only if you have a full version of QuickBooks. Okay, so if you you won't be able to see it if you download the 5-month trial, and you definitely will not be able to see it if you're using the 30-day trial, okay? All right, so now that I am done with that one, we can go ahead and hop on over to QuickBooks 2021, and I'm going to go ahead and show you what you can do here when you have the payroll services. So again, when you open up the portable file, you should get an error message or a message saying that this is a sample file of what it's like to go ahead and use the payroll service. So the one that we are using is going to be the basic one. So you're able to just only do what you need to do, right? Which is to pay your employees and pay your liabilities. Okay. However, you still have the three options right here. Okay. And this time, instead of having turn on payroll, you have a new feature called Payroll Center. Now, if I go ahead and click on Payroll Center, right, this is what it looks like. It's your employee center, okay? It's your employee center, and the only difference here is you have a third tab for payroll. And if you remember what I've mentioned before, so if you go to the employee center, of course, you should have your standard 2. But if you have the payroll services activated, you have a third tab for the payroll center. Now here there's supposed to be a little calendar here, and this is your payroll scheduler, okay? This is it right here, all right? Where chapter 10, they talk about it, but it doesn't tell you how to use it. This is how you use it, right? So when you set up each employee and you set up a date of when you make a payment, this is actually where you actually are going to make a payment to them. All right, so this is right here. All right. So as you can see right now, if I go to pay employees, I have payroll coming up for the December 16 paychecks. Okay. Right here is supposed to be a calendar, like I mentioned, which gives you reminders of when to make your payments. So again, under the payroll center, you have 3 additional tabs, right? The pay employees, pay liabilities, and it gives you a list of when those payments are due. And then, of course, you have file forms. Now, again, you get an error message here saying you have to have the enhanced payroll service to go ahead and operate this section, which is fine. You could still view it, but you can't use it. All right. So, again, when you turn on payroll services, you'll have a third tab in the employee center, and that tab will have 3 more tabs right here that allows you to do those functions. And of course, these are the same exact 3 functions that are going to be appearing on your home page. So again, you don't necessarily have to go through this, but it does make it a little more easier to get to this section right here. Okay? So that's the payroll center. Now let's go ahead and go through your book, because when you are dealing with payroll, there are a lot of duties when you are the human resources or the person who just process paychecks, right? So again, here it is. So what you have to do when you are in the position of making payments to your employees, these are the things that you have to check either every paycheck, every quarter, every year, okay? So again, You need to make sure that all your employees give you updated W-4 forms, okay? You need to make sure that you process and check mark that you made sure that each individual that you are computing the paycheck for is accurate. So again, now here's the cool part about QuickBooks. You don't necessarily have to have timesheets on. If you actually notice on the 2021 version of QuickBooks, the section on the home page doesn't show me that I have my timesheets on. All right, that's okay. You don't necessarily have to do that, right? That's only to, to have it calculated for you automatically. Okay. Where if I click on my 2019, right, it shows that I do have entered time. Now, if you remember in chapter 9, I showed you how to fill out that timesheet. Now, the great thing about QuickBooks is you don't need to go to enter time and click on pay my employees. QuickBooks is smart enough because you basically put the date in and it will automatically pull that information for you, so you don't have to do anything. All right, so that's a great thing about having timesheets done. But that's one of the check mark things that you have to have in your books, is that every paycheck, you need to make sure that each employee timesheet or whatever agreement that you made to pay them is accurate. All right, because it's also a hassle to have to adjust paychecks and just paychecks in general, because you have to adjust right, their amount of pay. You have to adjust the federal taxes, the state taxes, and so on and so forth. So it's a headache on its own to have to adjust those items. So that's why they always say, make sure that when you process your checks to each person, that you make sure that it is for the correct amount, and that you don't make any mistakes there. Okay. And of course, you have to also run your reports too, just to make sure that you paid each employee correct for the correct amount. And then of course, you want to make sure that you make your deposits and make sure that you pay your liabilities and so on and so forth. Okay, so this whole section basically tells you what you should do if you are in the position of the HR. So again, this is straightforward. I'm not going to go over it because, again, it just really depends if you are the position of making payments to your employees. Okay. So again, using Employee Center, I already showed you what the Employee Center does. Okay, so this is, again, in your book. It shows you an example of what the calendar looks like. So you know you know exactly when your payroll process ends, or your payroll period, and again, when you actually make payment to them. So again, if they are on different schedules, you can list them by filling out that little table where it says payroll schedule, if you don't remember, under employee defaults. And when you pick that exact date, then QuickBooks is automatically going to make you reminders that, okay, well, if you're going to pay them every 2 weeks, it will appear up here on when you need to make payments to them. Okay. All right, so it is very important as well that you always make sure that you are ensuring that you are using the correct tax tables. All right, so here is where you can find the correct tax tables. So this is the official tax table from the IRS.gov, okay? This is called Publication 15T, which is the actual federal income tax withholding tables, okay? This is meant for payroll, okay? Now, of course, and it's for 2021, so make sure that you get the correct year. So every year, IRS will release new sets of tables, and usually they do that usually around November. They release the new tax tables, and so then you can set it up for January, okay? So here, this lists all the tables that you need for any type of payroll processing that you're doing, whether it's automated or whether it's manual. Okay, and they give you two choices on what you can do. You could either do manual payroll, either using the percentage method, or you could do manual payroll for the there's percentage method, and then there is, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now. There's manual for a percentage method and another method. Okay, I'm sorry, I cannot think right now. But then again, there's also ones for automated services. So this one is what you want to focus on if you are using Intuit's services, right? You need to use this exact table for automated payroll systems, meaning you're not calculating this manually. You're using a system to automatically calculate the taxes for you. So again, this table right here, it's the very first one because again, it's commonly used for most and all different types of processing payroll services. All right, if you don't figure this out yourself, this is the best table that you want to use. And the great thing about this is if you are able to verify that this is the correct table with the 2021, right? They give you both tables on what happens when you have a W-4 form for 2019 and earlier, or you have the new 2020 W-4 form 2020 and later. And they give you both tables right here with the designated individual's marital status. Okay, so this is the table that you want to use for this. Okay, and yes, okay, there you go. It's called the bracket method. So the bracket method is where you're literally going through all this, and it even teaches you how to manually calculate the payroll process itself too, by going through the step-by-step little to figure out how you're able to do manual payroll as well. But the bracket method basically is a bunch of tables that you just basically look up what the value is and it will give you the numbers automatically. You don't need to even calculate anything, all right? Where the percentage method, you do have to do a little math and figuring it how you're able to calculate the total withholdings, okay? So once again, this is only for figuring out the federal income tax withholdings, okay? So this is an obligation that the employee must contribute their portion of tax to the company for for the just tax in general, okay? Where standard ones that are like federal taxes would be FICA, right? FICA is considered Social Security and Medicare. Yes, that is a standard straight rate of 6.2 for Social Security, and Medicare is 1.45%. So again, those numbers, if you've read the publication 15, not T's for the tax tables, then you will read that that is going to be in there that Medicare and Social Security is already a set standard rate. Okay, and it's been that way for the last 10 years or so, and it hasn't changed at all. But you definitely want to make sure in case any major changes, like maybe Social Security percentage has increased or dropped, you definitely want to make sure that you are processing the correct percentages for the FICA, because again, if not, you will get audited by IRS for your mistakes, okay? So again, if you're using an automated payroll services, this is the table that you should use for this, okay? So again, you can get these tax tables at irs.gov. Make sure it's publication 15-T. That will be the actual tables, okay? So that is tax tables. So again, to ensure that you are using the correct tax tables, you basically are going to have to just look up the information and basically compare is this the correct calculations. Okay. Oop. All right. So let's go ahead and get started and actually processing our payroll and actually pay our employees. Okay. So let's go ahead and dive into our example here in the book. How do we have or how can we pay our employees? Pretty straightforward. You can pay your employees by going through the pay employees little icon here. Okay, you can go through the employees center, right? Because that's the same exact way you can get to the payroll center, right? You could go to the employee center, click on payroll center, then click the tab pay employees. You can also even go straight to the payroll center right here on your home page and simply click pay employees. And then the last way that you're able to do that, okay, if you have the employee center on your icon bar, obviously same exact way too, you can go straight up to employees on their menu bar and be able to click pay employees. And again, see you have scheduled payroll and etc. Okay. Now I'm going to show you how to do it in the book, which is to go through your payroll center. So once again, there's many ways that you can get to the payroll center as long as you can get to the employee center, right? You click on payroll right here. That's the payroll center. And then you can click on the first tab, which is to pay your employees. And here you are pending to pay your employees for December 16th. Okay, so once again, 2019, again, this is a sample file, okay? All right, so once you selected this, you're going to go ahead and click start scheduled payroll. Okay, and then you're going to get this window. This window is where you're going to actually process the actual payroll itself. Okay, so first they do want you to check mark the first top part, which is how are you going to pay your employees? Well, we're going to pay through using our checking account, and we're going to make them for the ending date of our payroll period was the 15th, and therefore the check will be available on the 16th. So if you remember back when we did this last week, we set up Katie Reynolds as a salary-based earning employee. Okay? And we set her payroll frequency or her payroll period to be semi-monthly. So that means she's only receiving 2 checks per month on the 16th and on the very last day of the month. All right, only 2 paychecks. So it's not every 2 weeks. It's going to be every 16th of the month and every last day of the month. Okay. And now here's what your book also mentions too, is they do recommend you to use a separate checking account, especially for paying employees, because again, employees is a huge section of your business, right? The main goal is when you do own a business, your ultimate responsibility is if you're going to have employees, you need to make payments to them. All right? So that's why they want you to have a separate checking account dedicated to just making payments to your employees. But again, that's just a way to manage your money just a little more easier, right? Set aside, because if you only have 2 employees, you should be able to kind of get a rough estimate of how much you're going to be paying each employee every single month, right? So again, instead of putting money into savings, you should put that money into the separate account, so then you have enough to make sure that you pay your employees at all times. Okay, that's just a recommendation. You're not obligated to do it. But once again, I'm just going to go ahead and say, well, it looks to me I have $82,000. I definitely have enough to pay my employees. I don't need to figure anything else out, right? Now, here's where you can actually take a look at this portion too, is when do you want the check to be available for each individual employee to be able to cash out? That's very important. You can process payroll any given time of day, right? Especially for those who are on bi-weekly. Usually their payroll period ends on a Sunday, and let's say you're going to pay them on Friday. You have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to process the payroll, right? Any given time of day. However, what this important thing is, what are you going to make the check date available for? So then they can be able to cash their check out as soon as they get it, right? So in this case, right, I want to make sure that I pay them at the 16th instead of the 15th. Okay. So again, for bi-weekly, right, there's many companies that choose to people pay on Wednesday, on Thursday, or Friday, right? Okay. Now, commonly, it's Fridays. In this case, I'm going to make the check available literally the next day, so then they can't receive their check on the 16th. They can go ahead and cash it out right there. Okay. So then you want to also check mark these things down here where it says, do I want to print paychecks on check stock? Okay, so that's once again, if you are using Intuit to print your checks and using the system to print the checks, then yes, you definitely want to be able to click on that section there. But let's say you are not and you're going to handwrite them, then you would choose to handwrite those checks, okay? But in this case, because we're using payroll services and we're just going to take a look at how you're able to do this, then go ahead and just click on, I want to be able to print them on check stocks, okay? And then down below, you can actually choose which employee you want to pay. So you're not obligated to pay for all of them. You can choose, I only want to pay Katie. But of course, I'm going to also pay Mike as well. Now, this is where it's very important that you do. You definitely want to make sure that you check each individual, to make sure that that when you pay them, it is correct and the amounts are correct. So how do I do that? I'm actually going to go ahead and click on Katie's name. And this is where it shows you Katie's information on what you are calculating on her. So in this case, boom, she's a salary earning individual, right? She's, again, it's not based on the number of hours, but because she's salary and she's going to get paid, which we typed in earlier, that she's going to get $60,000 per year, it automatically calculated it and divided it by 24 paychecks to get $2,500 every single paycheck. Okay. We also included, right, her Medicare and her and Social Security, as well as a 401k plan. Oh, that's over here. Sorry. Medical. We also have her 401k plan where she puts in 4%. Okay. And of course, we match her, right? Match 401k is going to be 50% or whatever, 50% of what she's going to be contributing. So she's doing 4%, we do 2%. Okay. And of course, medical insurance, right? So these are the benefits and deductions that Katie's going to be getting from her paycheck. So over here basically calculates how the taxes are taken out from her paycheck, starting with the very first one. What is her salary regular? She earns $2,500. What was her 401k deduction? It's going to take away $100. Her medical insurance is going to take out $100. Right here, Medicare employee again, that's going to be down here. Federal withholdings, it's automatically calculated as negative $171. Okay. Of course, her Social Security, which is 6.25%, which gives you 155. And of course, Medicare is 1.45%, which tells you that it's negative $36. California withholdings and California disability. I don't know what those percentages are because we live in the state of Nevada. We don't have state taxes. Okay. And at the end of the day, she's going to come out with $1,820.97. Okay. And of course, because we're going to talk about this when we do manual, not only do we need to process her contribute to society with her paycheck, we also have to figure out the company's contribution for having Kitty as an employee. So over here, this is going to be the list of responsibilities for having Kitty as an employee that we need to match her for her 401k plan. We also need to pay into California employment, Social Security and Medicare, and also federal unemployment. Okay. All right. So again, I believe California does pay a portion to unemployment. It's just named differently. I believe it's going to be under the disability. Okay. So in this case, yes, right? This automatically calculated. All we did was just press pay employees and it's automatically calculated for us. All right? Simple and easy as that. Okay? And because we are here on this platform right now, right, this page right here, we can go as far as editing information as well. So what if Katie actually had some vacation days, okay? You can go ahead and type in vacation here, okay? Salary vacation, okay? And let's see what she did here. I believe she did 85 hours, okay, of regular. So if you see when I put salary vacation, boom, it split it in half immediately. So this is where I can boil it down to actually an actual calculation, where if I type in the number of hours she contributed, right, maybe she did 85 hours of actual work and she actually took 3 hours of vacation, it's going to automatically calculate it based on the percentage of hours, right? If they take the 2,500 and divide it by the total number of hours, they're going to get a rate. And then, again, QuickBooks, just by typing in the numbers in, it already figured those numbers out for you. All right, so here you go. Right, we agreed that we're going to make a payment to her. We're going to make a payment to her via based on a salary base. So no matter at the end of the day whether she went on vacation or not, we're still going to pay her the same amount every single paycheck unless she gets commission or unless she gets a bonus at the end of the year. So right now it's December, right? Maybe it's Christmas bonus. So I can go ahead and add that, and that will be the only time she'll actually get extra money instead of the same amount because she's salary based. Okay? All right. Any questions here?
No,
Okay. All right. So there you go. And that's as simple as it is. I can add any line item if I want here, and it automatically calculates it for me. Now, if I go ahead and click Save and Next, right, it's going to show up Mike's information here. Right here, he has a total of 80 hours, right? That's what we said, right, when we did the timesheets. He's a full-time employee. So in this case, it's going to transfer the information from the timesheet because we're processing the payroll for this week. So it will calculate it for you. Okay? Mike Mazowski is an hourly regular. He gets the same benefits as Katie. And now, in this case, because he's being paid an hourly rate, of course, he makes significantly less than Katie. So once again, all these numbers are calculated for you, right? And it depends on what Mike's status is. Where Katie was filed as a married individual, right? What if Mike was single and has 0 withholdings? In this case, right, he has a total of $313 worth of federal taxes, where Katie only had 171. That's because Katie is married, and she claimed that she had 2 dependents, or in this 2 withholdings. So in this case, right, she's going to be taxed significantly less, while Mike he's probably single with no withholdings. He's going to get taxed at the highest percentage, and right here, $313 of taxes he's going to pay into. Okay, so again, it's already automatically calculated for you. And that's it. So I can go ahead and click save and close. Okay, so right here, it's verified that you already went through the processing here, right? Here it gives you what hours that each individual person has done. You're going to go ahead and click continue. And what you're going to do here is it just verifies to you, is this the correct amount for each individual person? And once you get a grand total of how much you're actually going to make a payment for, okay, you can go ahead and click create paychecks. Okay, so once you get that, you're going to get 2 beeps of approval because we have 2 employees. And then you're going to get this window right here where it tells you, hey, you have 2 checks that are that haven't been printed. What do you want to do next? So again, you can print paychecks, or you can go ahead and print pay stubs. Okay, and in this case, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this and click close. All right, because I'm going to show you the next section here where what happens if we need to edit a paycheck. Okay, so that's that right there. So again, in case you do actually end up not printing those checks, right? How do you actually print them? Again, you're going to go to File, Print Forms, and then here you have Print Paychecks. And here it gives you that same exact window saying, well, you haven't printed these out yet. So I can go ahead and process them at any given time. And let's call these checks 6,069 and 6,070, which is already correct. Okay? So there we have it. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So once again, same process, it works, except of course your printed paychecks are going to look slightly different than your actual checks that you just print out in general, right? Now here, the best type of printed check you want to use is voucher style. Voucher style, once again, is where you have your pay information or pay stub information at the top, and at the very bottom, you have a perforated line of your actual paycheck itself. Yes, this type of check is actually more expensive, okay? However, it is a lot more convenient because then you would save a lot more time, and then instead of having to print all the checks out and then have to print an extra copy for the pay stubs, okay? But in this case, of course, it's easy to do that too, so you can choose between the two. You can do voucher style, which once again, at the top gives you your pay stub information. At the bottom is your actual check. Or what you can do, and most common companies do, is they just process all of the paychecks into one pay, sheet on a paper, right? This one has about 3 checks into one standard piece of paper. You could do that, and you can just tear the separate checks apart and then print the pay stubs separately and then give it to your employees. That's also another example there too. You can even go as far as adding a signature, right? You go to File and you locate a copy of the your boss's signature, right? Because again, your boss might not be in the office on Fridays, okay? They might not be in the office at all that week. So instead of having to chase your boss down to make sure that that the employees are being paid, you can always have a copy of the signature available in, a file, a digital copy. So there you go. That's his signature, and I click OK. So that every time I print it, that's exactly what's going to happen. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually print this out again. I have this special Microsoft printer where it just prints a digital copy. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in the same file as our class right now. So again, I'm going to LVPTA Accounting QuickBooks Class Student Portable Files, AM QuickBooks for September 7. And I'm going to name this Payroll for 12/16-19, right? I'm going to actually put that in there, and I'm going to click OK. So now that it does that, it tells me, okay, well, there you go. You processed 2 paychecks, and you're going to click OK. So what's going to happen is because I designated it from my checking account, if I go ahead and pull that information up in my checking account, okay, so it's here savings. I want this to be checking. Okay. Okay. And what you're going to notice here is here I written paychecks, right? It's not a standard it's not like you can go click write a check and be able to process your payroll there, right? You are using the pay employee section to go ahead and process the paychecks there, okay? And if I go ahead and double click on it, right, this check right here, it's going to basically pull up the information of what I did here. And there's no window where you can add your items or add anything there, right? But for any reason you can't activate your manual payroll, then yes, you are able to do it that way as well by using the write a checks window. It's just definitely not recommended when there is an actual proper function in QuickBooks to just write paychecks using the pay employees icon on the home page. Okay. So that's what the paycheck looks like. All right, it's check number 6,070. Okay. All right. And that is it. All right. Any questions in regards to finding or processing the paychecks?
No.
Right? Like I've mentioned before, that quick, that simple, that easy. You don't need to do any math in this class or in this program, right? It does it automatically for you. Okay. Now, what if you did end up doing, or what if your employee wants a copy of their pay stubs for any reasons? Maybe for refinancing their homes, right? They usually ask for a copy of your pay stubs, or maybe for alimony, or for some kind of legal reasons that they need to show proof that you are fully employed and that you are currently, working. You can process a pay stub at any single given time by clicking print forms, right? And you have the options for pay stubs, okay? I can go ahead and click that and you're gonna get the same form. Well, whose pay stubs are you trying to make a copy of? And in this case, I can check mark Katie and Mike, and I can even preview it. Okay, in this case, it says that your employees' pay stubs includes most of, okay, click OK, and there you go. Here is Katie and Mike's pay stub information, okay, pretty straightforward, pretty easy. All right. All right, and you can print this out at any given time. So even if fast forward at the end of the year, they want a copy of all of their entire pay stubs for the whole year, you can print them out as any given time. All right, and it gives you a list of every details from their gross pay all the way down to their net pay. Okay, and it also gives you their year-to-date information. Okay, so again, when you are doing the payroll setup and you are currently a active company, right, and you're using payroll for the first time with QuickBooks, this is what I was talking about, the year-to-date information, okay? Year-to-date information gives you pretty much all the information about how much do you owe this person for their federal taxes and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, this is what I was talking about. Okay. All right. So that is it right there. Okay. Now, let's talk about actually what happens if an employee decides to say, I'm so sorry, I reported my hours incorrectly. Please edit my information to process a an actual check here, a new check, or reprocess my information and run the process over again. In this case, your book doesn't actually tell you the direct answer to do it, because unfortunately, that is another complicated issue that you have to deal with when it comes to QuickBooks. But what I'm going to show you here is going to be off the books, because your book kind of tells you this is the way that you do it, this is how you are able to edit the information, but they don't actually tell you how to modify the information, okay? They only show you this is how you can edit the information, okay? So how I'm going to do that, there are a couple ways that you can do it, but in this case, I'm going to go off the book and show you how to properly do it correctly, so then you are able to do this in case for any circumstances where you have an employee that tells you, hey, I clocked in my hours wrong, okay? This is how you do it. Now, let's talk about what the book tells you to do it in order for you to edit the information. Now, again, edit information goes as far as your book is making changes to, maybe just making changes to their paycheck or things like that, like editing it. So what you're going to do here is you're going to go ahead and click on 1216 on your payroll center. Down below, okay, in very, very, very tiny words, you got edit check, edit/void a check, all right? And you're going to get this window, and you're going to double click on that individual person to go ahead and modify what you need, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and click Mike Mizuki, and then you're going to get this window right here. And down below on this window, you do have the option for paycheck details. So if I click paycheck details, it gives me that same exact window that I was looking at earlier, right? And this is where you can modify your check, okay? Now, this is only if you have not sent your check out. That's a very, very important rule here, because here you already validated that this is the paycheck, this is the taxes you owe, and et cetera, et cetera. Okay? Now let's take a look real quick. Okay? So I'm going to take a little side note real quick, take a little detour. Okay, so let me take a little detour. And let's double confirm what our total amounts are in each liability. So if I go to my chart of accounts, because I need you to make sure that you are clear on this. Let's go to my chart of accounts, okay? Let's see how much of my payroll liabilities are. So in this case, payroll liabilities, let's see, other payroll liabilities, okay? So we have these amounts here where I'm at $12,550, $6,099, and $3,619, okay? Those are just rough estimates, right? So when you do make any changes to that paycheck, right, you don't necessarily have to go through there. You can, an easier way to get to your paycheck is you could just go ahead and go to your checking account itself. Okay, you don't need to go through the whole payroll, but they just do that so then you're able to, make sure you're on the correct one. you could go to your checking, right? And like I mentioned, right? Let's go ahead and click on Mike Mizuki, right? I could go ahead and click on view payroll details and get to that same exact window much quicker, all right? And once again, this is his the total taxes that we've already calculated for this individual, okay? Now again, your book does not teach you what happens if your employee decides to do something different, or maybe whatchamacallit, they didn't do as many hours, or they told you the wrong hours. Oh, I did sick pay this, or I did vacation pay that, okay? And in this case, right, this is what I'm going to go ahead and show you, okay? That maybe Mike called in sick and said, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you that on Friday I actually called in half a day. Okay, so he only actually earned 72 hours opposed to 80, right? Now this is what I was talking to you about earlier, right? What happens if Mike, right, ends up working less, and you've already sent out the paycheck, right? You need to do what's right is to adjust his pay information and adjust all of those taxes, because if he earned less, therefore it affects everything that's on here, right? Now again, you cannot do this because some people think it's easier to just do it that way. You can't just send him a paycheck, right? And then have him calculate, or basically you manually calculate what is the difference between the two, okay? And then you write a new check for him for the difference amount. No, because at the end of the day, you still have to edit all the information that you taxed him for. Those are going to significantly change as well. Okay, so here's the easiest way to do it. So let's say, because we already wrote the check out, right? You would have to process a new check. What's going to happen is that this is what you should do. You shouldn't void a check at all for any reason, okay? Because if you do void a check, what happens is you're going to have to go through all of it all over again and process it that way, all right? All right? But no, you shouldn't do that. It's, it's already easier enough to just, it's already hard enough and difficult enough to just do payroll in general. So what they suggest you to do here is like, well, in your book, it doesn't tell you, but I'm going to tell you because you should know this, all right? So in this case, let's go ahead and make changes, okay? I'm going to say he didn't earn his full hours. He decided to, maybe he didn't even work on Friday. So therefore, he only earned 72 hours, okay? Now, once I do that, and then check mark somewhere else, you are going to get an error message saying, hey, you're making changes to this net pay, and right now you can't do it. It won't let you. QuickBooks will not let you do this. All right? And I'm going to go ahead and click and click yes. Now, if I do that, right, it just warned me that all my settings are going to be different and that I can't do it. I can't, because here's going to give me a whole message of telling me what I can do. But in reality, yes, you can do it. How do I do it? Simple. Go down to the window right here. You have this little thing section called Lock Net Pay. Now, your book doesn't tell you about that because this is more advanced level of QuickBooks, but I think any person that is processing payroll should know this. It should be written in your book because a lot of times this section right here, it's overlooked because, again, it's more advanced users of QuickBooks. But I think you guys should learn this. You need to unlock your net pay. Of course, you're going to get a warning sign saying, hey, you are at risk of making changes to all the federal information. And I'm going to click OK. I don't care. I'm going to do it. All right. So if I unlock my net pay, right, And then, of course, I re-verify that I have 72 hours, which once again, I'm down to $1,728. And look at this. My federal income tax is no longer $313. It's now $269. Right? Right? And of course, now that I made changes to this, including my federal income, my my taxes for state and federal, including the employer's taxes, has also changed significantly because my employee made less money. All right, this is the best way to do it. Instead of doing what your book says to edit and void or anything like that. You definitely do not ever want to void a check for any reason, because that's going to throw your account balances out in each individual paycheck that you do. This is the best way to do it, and adjust it this way. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead, and once I do that, okay, I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So now his paycheck information is significantly different, right? And the number's still the same, which is fine. However, what you're going to do here is, because you've already sent him that paycheck, you want to kind of void it, right? In this case, no, you don't void it, right? You have to actually call the bank and manually do that. But I'm going to go ahead and process this as paycheck 6071, and I'm going to make it print again later. Okay. And then again for the same date, but this time for the different amount. And I'm going to go ahead and click save and close. Okay. And of course it's going to say you made changes to this. Yes. Okay. So again, my previous check was written for a larger amount, and then of course a new check was written out for this one. What you're going to have to do is you actually, I should have memorized that number earlier. But anyways, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to now go ahead and write a new check, right, for the exact amount that you made a payment for. So in this case, what does your book say that the check amount was actually for? I think it was for... I think it was 19. I think it was like 15 something. Let me check. Okay. Where is Mike? So his paycheck was supposed to be for a total of $1,301.39. Okay, so 1301.39. Okay, and what you're gonna do here is you're going to write a check. Okay, so any way you want to do it, whether you want to write a check through using the register or actually manually write a check, it's up to you. I'm gonna go ahead and just place it right here, saying this, and I'm going to be entering in the check number that I originally wrote out earlier, which is the 6070, right? That was Mike's check earlier. Payee Mike Mizuki. Okay. And then you're going to get this error saying, are you trying to write a paycheck, yada, yada, yada. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, return to register. Because I'm not writing a check to him. Okay. Account, once again, it will be for the payroll expenses, gross wages, or something like that. Payroll expense. Okay, where's gross wages? Payroll tax, gross wages, okay? And of course, memo here is going to be adjusted pay check number number 6070. Okay. All right. And again, it's going to be for that same exact amount of the 1301.39. Okay. You're going to go ahead and click enter. So now you have an actual check that you written out to him, right? So what's going to happen here is, since it's right here, that was the original paycheck information, this is the one that you're going to actually void. All right. So then in your books, it doesn't mess up your actual your federal income stuff, right? Because in this case, I just wrote a blank check basically for the amount of information for the gross wages, right? But because I can void it, it just zeroes it out. So that's the best way to do it. So in this case, right, because I have to reissue Mike a new check anyways, in this case, this makes it so then you don't zero out any of the federal taxes that you've already calculated, right? And of course, you have a print to be printed paycheck available, okay? So, yes. Okay. Okay. And of course, you'd be able to, once again, go to edit, print forms, print paychecks, and reissue Mike his new check for the 6071 and click OK. All right? That is the best recommended way to do it is you're going to take your paycheck information, edit it how you want to, and just recreate a new check, okay? And then create a new check for the same amount that the old check was for, and then void that check. So then your books say that you have check number 6070 already used, it's voided, and that doesn't affect any of your federal taxes that you've already calculated. Okay? Any questions there?
No.
Okay, so once again, your book does not tell you to do that. So let's take a look at our chart of accounts and check out those payroll liabilities. Notice this, it has been fixed already. It's now down to 1244, 6,088, and 3,552. It adjusted it automatically because you chose to edit the information in that actual paycheck information. Okay, so that's the best way to do it, right? That's the best way to void and fix information in case an employee decides to accidentally mess up on their timesheet and so on and so forth. Okay, all right. Okay, so we talked about how to void a check, and I talked to you about how to print those checks. Okay. All right. So once you've been doing all that information, right, we just took a look at all of our liabilities, and that's all the stuff that we have that we've collected since the month that started, right? So in this case, we are going to go ahead and make a payment to liabilities. Okay. You don't need payroll liability reminders. You want to go to the section where you're just going to make payments to your liabilities. So straightforward, okay? Taking a look at your home page, the next step after you've paid your employees, right? Depending on the time of day, you're going to get these little flags right here saying, hey, you have one thing to pay for liabilities, okay? You could simply go through your home page and click that. Again, you could go through your employee center to your payroll center to click on the tab for pay liabilities. Or you can again go up to your menu bar and pay your liabilities accordingly right here. Pay, taxes, and liabilities. Okay. But I'm going to go ahead once again. Let's go ahead and use the payroll center once again. That's what your book says. And again, we're going to go over. So now that we're done paying our employees, the employees will be paid till next year, okay? Or for December, again, next year. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Pay Liabilities, okay? So Pay Liabilities gives me a list of all the liabilities that I owe for the federal and the state, which if you remember, we set this up in the payroll setup interview, right? We set up our federal taxes as well as our state taxes. Okay? So here, and we said that we would pay every quarterly. So here it says that we have two liabilities that we're going to make a payment for. So again, this is your 940 or 941s. Okay. So right here we have federal 941 and 943. That will be the very first thing that we have here. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And we're going to click view/pay. Okay. Oh, okay. I have to select it. All right. View/pay. So this window pops up, straightforward. In this case, because we set it up in a way where we set up the agency of who we're going to pay. So in this case, it was the Electronic Federal Taxation Payroll Services. Okay. So and there it is, right? It shows me that my federal withholdings was a total of 1,000. So again, it takes it up to the date. In this case, whatever I process on December 15 is the date that is going to take. It's not going to take anything extra according to that. All right. Here for my medical insurance and my Medicare. Okay, so no, they're both Medicare. All right, for 128 and 128. Okay. So once again, this is your employee and employer. Okay. So again, each one that you're making a payment for, it's going to be different, right? You have one separate for Social Security, one separate for Medicare, and one separate for federal withholdings. Then you have your unemployment, then you have et cetera, okay? They're all going to be separate payments. However, the way that you schedule it, right, by using the payroll scheduler, then you will determine how often you will pay it, which in this case, we said we'll pay every quarterly. Okay? So once everything looks good and you're making a payment out from your checking account, then you are ready to go ahead and click that save and close. Right? And simple as that. You made a payment to your liabilities. Okay? So you get this window right here that pretty much tells you what you have done. You can either print checks or you can print summaries. In this case, I'm going to close this window real quick because I still got one more liability that I must pay. I need to pay this state one right here. And I'm going to click View and Pay. And here it is, right? I have to pay my California withholdings and my California disability. All right. It's already calculated. So what you're going to do is you're making a payment to this liability. And I'm going to go ahead and click Save and Close, okay? So now I get this window here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually click on Print Checks. Because, again, some of them are not printed. And here, when you click on Print Checks, right, this does use the actual printed checks window. But they just, have an easier way so then you don't have to manually look up the information and so on and so forth. It calculates it for you. Here you have two checks that you are writing out to, right? One of them is to the EFTPS and the other one is for the EDD, right? The Employment Development. Okay. It's straightforward, right? And here you go. Now, I already used check number 6071. There I want to make sure this is 6072 and 6073. Okay, and once again, you're going to go through the same process over again. You click OK. You figure out how you're going to pay them. Again, most likely you're going to use standard. You can put a signature and you would click OK. All right, but in this case, there you go. And I'm going to go ahead and make this 940, 943, and CA. Okay. I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. Okay. So there you go. I print them out. Okay. And I'm going to click okay. So once again, now let's take a look at our checking account once again because we used checking to make these payments. And notice this, my payroll scheduler, because I already paid them, they are down at the bottom, okay, that I made a payment. So once again, let's take a look at my checking account to see what I did here. So again, this needs to be checking, click OK, and boom. Now it says that you made a paycheck, you wrote a check here, and it says, where is it? Liabilities. Liabilities check 6073 and 6072. Liability check. All right, so once again, QuickBooks is very, very clear, especially where you don't have to manually write checks at all. It does everything work for you. All right, and it separates it for you so then you don't have to make a note that you wrote a check for this memo, right? It does it for you. Straightforward, right? Any questions in regards to paying your liabilities?
No.
Again, like I said, straightforward, okay? Now, of course, if you could pay your liabilities, right, you can also go ahead and run reports on them. So again, you click on reports, you click on employees and payroll, and then of course you can also take a look at your payroll liability balance, okay? You can look at your employee status, so payroll details, payroll summary. So in this case, if I click on payroll liabilities detail, here you go. And I say custom. So this is for 2021 to November, which no, I don't want November. I want December 31st, okay? And you're, make sure you click that refresh button and it will populate that. You made a payment to California Disability right here, okay? For the month of December, okay? December, boom. That was your, this gives you a month to month for the whole year, okay? Of what was your liabilities and so on and so forth, okay? You can go as far as running reports on how often you actually paid your employees, right? By going to reports, again, payroll or employees in payroll, payroll summary, payroll item details, so you could see how many items that you, made payments to, or sorry, not payments to, but calculated for. So all your federal taxes, all your state taxes, okay, you can, and so on and so forth. So again, a lot of payroll reports that you can do, as well as your liability reports, whatever you want to do in regards to your employees and payroll. Okay. Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and see if we are good on time. Okay. All right, so it's exactly about 9:53. So let's stop here and we'll talk, when we come back, we'll talk about filing forms and what a manual payroll system would look like, okay? Okay, so right now I'm going to call time at 9:55, so take your 15-minute break. So please be back no later than 10:10. Well, actually, you know what? Go ahead and take 20 minutes breaks, okay? So be back no later than 10:15.